with industry, the Department of Labor, as well as the People Management Association of the Philippines, who's a partner of the Department of Labor to actually handle the case with us. We have a team of certified, I don't know if the term is mediators, but I forgot the term. But that's really the purpose of that. So you'll expect more and more of that. The other thing that we've actually done, and one of the guys who work with us here is Nathan Andaya of Saitel, is really establish a framework for human capital best practices. And we've actually worked with PMAP and also another group that actually runs the Investing in People model, which is the UK-based model for global practices here. So it's industry, PMAP, as well as the DOLE initiative to see how we can, as an industry, push out and adopt global standards. Right? So that we actually can see everybody trying to aspire to actually that global standard. So a lot of work, no? There's a lot of discussion tomorrow in many pockets around this, but I think we've really started on a very, very good momentum. But just at the beginning, we do have HR councils that are organized by the association. Ask us how to be part of this, because that's where you hear the variances of how HR companies are dealing with performance management issues. So some are really much faster, much more efficient. Others are stuck. They don't know how to deal with it, and they think it's all about the rules of the game, when in fact there's enough flexibility to make it more efficient and responsive to the business. That's my opinion.
So is the lady from Genpact satisfied with the answer of Mr. Hernandez? And if you have any suggestions, please let him know now on how they could be more aggressive.
Thank you for sharing those details with us. I think most of those are going to be discussed tomorrow, but I am more hopeful to hear more as we progress on to this effort. Thank you.
Do you have any more questions from the floor? Yes, sir. You have time for 2 more questions from the floor before we wrap up.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Joe Ray. I work for Aegis. And my question centered around the 25% gap that Karthik mentioned about the cost of value. But here's my question. You know, given the vibrancy of the industry, especially in Manila, we have organizations, BPOs, that are offering as much as twice the entry-level salary of the agents, and at times even offering signing bonuses. So it's...
Can you let me know which company this is?
Sure. Yeah. Sometimes. But anyway, my question to the panel is, do you think that this can lead to an escalation of salary wars and thereby further widening this gap of 25%? Or can we as an industry hold back from this escalating salary and try to keep things in check? At Aegis, we try to address that by improving the quality of life at work, and it's just not all about the money.
So would you like to address this to the local players or to the regional analysts?
I'd like to go with the local players.
All right. Let's start off with Marife. Briefly, please. Briefly.
Yes, what I can say is that the entry-level salary of our agents 10 years ago is still the same salary that we're offering our agents today.
That was short. Bradley.
Okay. Can I just do a follow-up on that?
Yes.
But the thing I wanted to elaborate is that with the need to start up business, whether incremental or new business, we have BPOs that are going twice the amount of that entry salary plus signing bonuses. So where is the restraint and control of the whole situation? Marife?
Well, you have to set a standard for your business. So if your standard is not to fight with it, then you go with it.
Ricky? Benedict first.
Ricky and then me.
Yeah. Okay.
If it's a startup, then those are startup costs. Okay, you probably have to disburse those kinds of salaries, but I agree with Marife. Even in our industry, in our company, the starting salary has stayed the same. Of course, there are opportunities to increase that in the years, but the starting salary has remained the same, which is way above the minimum wage. Now, for a company to actually start off with twice the salary, and I don't really know how they'll even make money. So it's not sustainable. Okay? It's like shooting yourself in the foot, right? I mean, so I think there's self-regulation, and we know the economies of, how to run the business, what the cost management, in terms of the foreign exchange rate, how forward are contracts, etc. To be fair, to make it attractive enough, but not too attractive that it's not sustainable.
Bradley?
So basically that's it. It's self-regulating. As an industry, we don't say, let's give this as a basic starting pay, but I think we have an idea of what the starting should be.
All right, Benedict, then Bradley.
So there's a couple of points. Earlier, it was already mentioned. It actually is obviously a company-owned responsibility, right? Do you have a differentiated employee value proposition that will actually protect you from higher offers because they're going to come? The challenge of our industry in this particular topic is that it's really just still growing like crazy. So it is the employees market. A while ago, I told you the Tesla scholars, I never really met them until today. And one of them said that, I got a job offer today, I got a job offer a few days later before I even started. I already resigned from the first job offer and took the higher offer. And that's really the nature of the context of this. That comes with a high growth entity. So everyone is always trying to figure out what is our unique employee value proposition. So we protect. And again, the answer lies in the variability of those attrition rates. We've heard 12% annually, we've heard 35% annually. The average in the survey that we did is about 55%. That's the average. And that we feel is already pretty good for this industry that's actually characterized with really high attrition. There are companies in the 80-90%. So what we know is that the low attrition environment do exist, and it is a matter of employee value differentiation. At the broader level, in the ecosystem level, this is really a challenge of, this talent supply is really our doing. Our growth has been phenomenal. Our numbers are so huge. Just any additional intervention can keep up with the tremendous growth. So growth is really driving a lot of this. But if you think about, can we further scale near higher training program to add to the talent source? When do we start to harvest those that are going to the customized curriculum in college that are going to be trained for our industry? And as earlier said, the biggest game changer potentially, are we able to capitalize on government intervention to help design grades 11 and 12 for our industry? And if you can imagine a huge chunk of higher school graduates joining our industry, that's going to be phenomenal. Just one sharing, and I know we are short on time. We actually, as an industry, are in a pilot with a university in Makati that actually looked at people who were not privileged to complete high school. They had to take assessments to just get a Department of Education equivalency. They just didn't have money. We put them on this industry curriculum. More than half of them have already internship that's interested to hire them. They're going to the grade 11 and 12 version of the industry. So I think that's what we need to do, expand the talent pools, because that's really broadly what is the answer to calming down all of this frenzy in fighting over a limited talent source.
Benedict, we're not really short on time. I was just told that I have my flight at 7:30. That's why we're short on time. But we still have to move forward. I know that we can knock on the Cebu Pacific aircraft door. Yes. So I will not be late. Yes, Heidi.
Hi there, Heidi Enriquez, Vice President for HR of SciTab. My question is directed to our regional analyst. Now, Dr. Villegas earlier really talked passionately about the opportunities present for the Philippines once we get into AEC, the Asian Economic Committee. Now, we all know that that is envisioned to enable freer goods and services as well as skilled labor within the ASEAN communities. Now, with us, with several presenters already highlighting the problem on brain drain, vis-a-vis the desire of contact centers to also move up to higher value chain of contact center service. What are some of the risks that you're seeing vis-a-vis the Asian Economic Committee implementation beginning 2000.